Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Pine Hills studio, the Pine Hills Palace, I should say, RDV, because you're of course from the Great Midwest, and I am from the just west of Orlando, Florida, and I'm a little upset because I guess trending on Twitter is how Elon Musk is going to be changing the name of Twitter to X, and
Eh,
I don't know if I need to contact him about my copyright on my logo because let's be honest, I'm the one that had the whole X thing with the Extreme Movie Show, 4 or 5 years ago. So I'm beside myself, RDV, and the reason why is because tonight's movie, Oppenheimer, this 3 hour slog fest. If I could, I'd put a big fat X on it because this movie does not deliver in any way, shape, or form. I know this whole Barbieheimer thing's had a lot of media hype and word of
yeah.
mouth. I think the media campaign's been very good, but I don't have a lot of positive things to say about it. I didn't hate
Okay.
it; it didn't offend me, but it was boring in the snooze fest, and I want to know
It's
what your initial take is.
so watching through it, I'm like pretty much it's very mid level.
Mid.
Uh, yeah, it is very mid. Um, what really pissed me off about the whole entire movie is not just the length of the movie. It's not even that. It's the fact that they kept time jumping. I didn't know what. Okay, this is black and white, but this is also black and white. But wait, that's a different time period. This happened before.
Yep.
It's like make up your mind if you're gonna do that. At least let us know. Let's say like 1945, and then you go back previously 7 months ago. Do something like that. That was bullshit, and I hate that. He's not the first person to do this. Other people have done this in other movies, other shows. But man,
Nolan's known for it being, a time fanatic when it
uh,
comes to these kinds of things and the
yeah,
convoluted storytelling. Um, and again, I'll say this, I have a amateur science background in physics. I don't want to dive too much more into that because it's a personal thing. So I like it when there's movies like it, but let's be honest, nobody cares about science fiction or hard science or the real stuff. Honestly, it's hard to make it entertaining because it's abstract. It's only about what meaning does it have in our personal life that it matters. So when I heard about Christopher Nolan, who always makes usually a visually stunning film, I was interested in it. And when I was like, okay, this is obviously a passion project of his, I really was looking forward to it. To me, there's lots of interesting stories about these quirky people that do these things that somehow seem amazing. And I thought they could have went one of a lot of different ways with it, right? They could have done like Matt Damon The Martian, where it's basically just a big propaganda pro NASA piece for it, if that's your view on it. Because I thought The Martian was okay. It was a fluff piece, but it was fine for what it was. This one, I thought, okay, he's really going to dive deep into Oppenheimer, father of the atomic bomb, so to speak. And to me, there are a lot of criticism that I seem to notice over the past week or so about it, or just people reviewing, is a couple things that to me aren't even worth mentioning. It's the fact that they say, well, we don't even hear a woman until 20 minutes in, and women contributed to the Manhattan Project and all this stuff. You know what? I don't care about all that shit. The movie's about him, so that's fine. But here's the thing: the guy, like most people that are genius level IQs or high level IQs, they usually cannot relate to the real world. They might have quirks about him that might be like, oh, that means he's automatically has character. No, the guy's a bit of a jerk off. He was a slog. There's no reason to like him. There's no reason to hate him. They tried to play this ambiguity card because honestly, dude was a commie. And people can argue about today's politics and all that. We're not trying to compare it to what's going on in today's world here in the United States. But if you don't like the character, who gives a shit? And if people want to throw the card out there about, well, this is bigger than that, this is about the most destructive force on the planet, blah blah blah. You know what? Shut up. It's if I'm going to fall asleep 20 minutes in, and have all these timelines like you're talking about jumping around, and it's not coherent. I don't care what happens in the next 2.5 hours because the one thing people like to say too is that this movie's very deliberate for the first 2 hours, but boy, once that bomb goes off, that last hour, it really goes up. No, it's about him sitting there with government bad, nuclear stuff bad. Who knows? He played both sides of it. This movie did nothing. It didn't start somewhere and finish somewhere else. It was a mess from the beginning all the way to the end. I would agree almost completely with everything that you're saying about it. Now, that being said, I wanted to ask you this. Obviously, over on the Geeky Puppet Show, you and Professor Pixel are young 20 something who contributes on both channels here, the Extreme Movie Show and y'all's. Um, he usually has some very interesting divergent opinions. I know that you guys cover a lot more of the Marvel DC things. my preference is more practical effects and all that. While Nolan typically makes, like I say, a visually appealing film, I thought this movie didn't really look that good, even though it's a great print in the theater and all that. And honestly, the sound was really off too. I wanted to hear what your take is on how the movie just looked and sounded.
Well, when I first got there, it was for a 12:20 showing. It was already playing about 8 minutes into the movie before there was no credits. I'm like, what the hell? So someone had to go, and not only that, they had the lights on in the theater for some
Really?
reason. I don't know why. So they turned the lights off, but they kept playing the movie. I'm like, wow, we shouldn't be that far ahead where we see uh, what's his name? The guy from Black Hawk Down. I forget his name. Was Josh Hathaway? I think it was.
Gosh,
Yeah,
hot net. Get it?
Just Hardnet. Yeah, Hardnet. Yeah. So they had to go back and restart the movie over.
Oh no.
Yeah. So and then I watched it, and now I knew it was 3 hours long. I already watched like a good portion of it online as it was before just to see if I actually want to sit
Allegedly.
because I'm like 3 hours. I want to see if it's actually something I actually want to, because it's very much a documentary movie. But with a little bit of fiction put in there. Honestly, it's about the building the atomic bomb, but there's a lot of fluff in here that has nothing to do with him building the atomic bomb. It's him before him. It's like, I really don't need to know this. It's not important. I got to see Florence Pugh's Bratz about 3 times in the movie, so that was a plus.
The side chick.
Yes,
because that's what she does, right? She gets a nude and everything, which I'm not complaining, but
no,
I mean, I guess they felt that was the only thing she had to contribute to this guy. And again, here's a guy that I think his performance is fine. I think he nailed the guy great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But everybody else there, when you see Josh Hartnett and you see some other people in there, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of people in here, and some of them bring some pretty good juice. And I thought Josh would have been good too. But I found myself going, I want to latch on to somebody else.
Yeah. So this movie that was all about spies, and which is true, because back then the Russians were spying on us. We also, we're in the middle of a war. And so, with us building the bomb, there's a lot of spy talk going on. There's, and him being a communist sympathizer. His brother was a full-fledged communist. He in the movie they claim to say that he was just like a guy who accepts. He's not communist. He's not American. He accepts all beliefs. He's a physicist. Theories. And in truth, I thought he was just basically a German defector. That's what I thought, and that's why I brought him over. Just like they built the bomb. Like, I don't remember reading it or hearing anything about this in textbooks about him. Do all this other bullshit they threw in the movie. But overall, the Florence Pugh thing situation, like they basically was her character was basically to be there. He was in a bad relationship, basically a physical relationship. He was hung up on a girl. He was pussy whipped. And she ends up by being murdered, silenced, because they don't want him leaking information. And so, like I said, her character was kind of pointless. I guess it's just reinforced the fact there were spies out there, and But Emily Blunt's character was even more. She plays Kitty Oppenheimer. Shows that she was on. By the time she met him, he became like her third husband, and she became a drunk. And just his character throughout the whole entire thing is like, he's building the bomb, and then afterwards he's like, he feels guilty about the whole bomb, and then he gets called a pussy by Truman. Now, it's just like, they really want you to. The whole point of the movie is it wants you to realize that Oppenheimer was blamed for everything after the war. He was a hero, and then they turned on him.
That's right.
Yeah. So makes me really hard to believe that this movie is accurate, because there's a lot of stuff they don't teach today because of this. So why would they not cover this up? If the government wanted to cover up before, why would this be allowed to be as a movie? This is I guess we consider a fictional movie.
Well, because it's a movie, yes. I will say, based on what I know, a lot of it is the whole poisoning him thing is legit.
Yes. But Bohr wasn't there, apparently, I guess.
Yeah, and there's a lot of interesting things with science from the 1800s coming into the 1900s here with quantum mechanics and all that. And so unfortunately, I thought they did not the greatest job of explaining the idea that, okay, you figure crap out hundreds of years ago. Of course, Einstein's in here too. Um, they don't really make a big deal about it, in my opinion. But they could have said something to the basic person saying, hey, things work a certain way like this, but there's also a bunch of people that think it works like that. And this is when they were talking about, waves or particles, because most things are like physical, you think, but then it doesn't explain other stuff that waves does. And he's like, really, it's both, and it's nothing. And then everyone wants to get sexy because of the name and all that. And this has been the thing going on since Stephen Hawking and black holes in the 80s and 90s and all that shit. So they didn't even bother trying to tap into the minor bit there or anything that might have been on like Sheldon Cooper's character or any of those guys there too. It's a lot of boring work, and I thought the most realistic part of it, physics wise, was actually early on when you see them. Not necessarily the beginning part of the film, but chunks of it, because they do bounce around. And it's the fact that here's a guy that, and this is how it works. He's super smart, was lazy, could get by on some stuff, and so not having full mastery of fundamentals cost him later on because he sucked in the lab. He's a theoretical guy. And in physics, it's basically one of two paths. You're either a theoretical guy and ideas, and you write a bunch of shit down on a bunch of chalkboards or whiteboards or any of that kind of stuff, or you're somebody that's hands-on, like we saw when he walked in there, when he got his first appointment there, we saw Josh Hartnett's character basically saying, unlike you, we're building stuff, and he's trying to like befriend him or at least have a conversation. And it's two totally groups of people, regardless of your specialty. And most people want to talk about their special topics they're in and how they're a master of this one area. And that really doesn't get you very far. It's really about how good you are at fundamentals and working with a team. And the thing that to me totally blew my mind, that what I don't know about that I thought could have been a saving grace of this film, and it was not, was the fact that he obviously did not know how to deal with people. And so somehow they make him a manager of this project so he could make this miracle. And then somehow he's able to have really good confidence. I'm like, okay, that doesn't make sense, because usually if you're really good at one thing, you're not good at anything else. So you need somebody that
Yeah.
who was I forget the character's name, but there's a guy in there that basically wasn't as good as him, but he kind of like, had his nose to the grindstone, pushed through, and got his papers published and all that. That's the kind of guy, a generalist, that might go, hey, I know I'm not that good, but I know how the pieces fit, so let me put these people together. And I thought that would have been a great avenue to show how like a crisis of confidence for him as a smart guy. Hey, how do I prove myself? Well, I can do it, damn it, by rallying everything together. They could have tapped in, as sappy as it sounds, into the whole American model of we're going to put every resource behind it and all this. And it's not. It's just he's not a character we really care about. And again, that's when you anchor it around him,
He's a nervous
even if it's
guy. Yeah.
fictionalized, kind of puts something behind it that drives the audience to want to watch it. So when you realize, Jesus Christ, when we see the bomb go off, which honestly was not very good to me, I thought it was okay. I would give Twin Peaks: The Return, episode 8, I think it is, where we talked about here on Xtreme TV, some reviews back, a better, more interesting build-up for what it's worth. It was kind of like, okay, yeah, they build it, it explodes, and now what? And then the last half hour to hours, like you're saying, it's him being interviewed and how they kind of turned on him. But here's the thing: all
Yeah.
the stuff about Truman calling him a pussy, absolutely true.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the whole thing. Communism been around for a long time, and after World War One and Two, a lot of people defected over here, but they also brought a lot of them over here that were working on things. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like we want to have all those resources here, and that exists to this day. So the whole idea of fighting about, Robert Downey's character got really more prominent towards the end about, no, we're pro making sure we're the only ones that have control of this, whereas Oppenheimer wanted everybody to kind of democratically have equal access to it, which, again, politically speaking, they
Yeah.
didn't dive in too hard. It's a legitimate conversation. He just presents it, Nolan does, and we're left to sit there and go, okay, and I care about this. Why?
Yeah, so basically, like you see the conversation at the end, you learn about that Oppenheimer had with Albert Einstein, and it's Albert Einstein says, soon it's gonna be your turn, where everybody smiles and nods at you, and they smile and they swallow their pride because they know you're right, and they can't say they're sorry, you know.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, so it's very anti-war movie. That's what I got out of this a little bit for me. Um, you had the people in like Chicago who are saying like, oh, we shouldn't fight. Don't use a bomb. You're gonna kill everybody and stuff. And then it's just everything that's going on with him and Jean, uh, um, Florence Pugh's character.
Mhm.
I'm like, I wonder how if that's actually even accurate. If he did have an affair on his wife, cheat on her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
When
because
you're really good at any one thing, you're gonna have your groupies, for lack of a better term. I've seen it in all these fields. It's
sure,
absolutely a
but
thing.
I don't
You don't
know.
think of it because it's a dorky physics professor, but it's legit.
Like I said, I don't know if that's actually 100% true that he actually cheated on her and stuff. I have to look it up because I haven't done any study into Oppenheimer. I
Right.
never learned about this. They didn't teach about this. Uh, when I was in high school, you know, U.S. history, when it came to this stuff, was very vague.
Yeah, nobody teaches the classics anymore, especially in science.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. What made you wanna see it?
Well, it's coming out, and it was either that or Barbie, and I was like, we need something to review. So that's the only reason I picked this, because there was really nothing else to review. I mean, we could do a martial art movie, but this is the big talk. Everybody's like, "Oh, it's a Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan does not make bad movies." I don't know about that.
Quantum mechanics suggests this is a question of which state the movie is in. Yeah, it's interesting because one of the scariest things when I was younger in my science days that people would describe talking about atomic bombs versus nuclear, of course, because there is a difference, fission versus fusion, which they kind of started to talk about, was the fact that they kind of had this idea that, okay, once they set off this chain reaction, you get some high enough temperature that the energy released from that is high enough to let other atoms and molecules kind of split up and all that stuff. The idea of this chain reaction is doesn't stop, and it's like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I mean, you would think it would, but you don't really know that, and they don't really play up the dread factor, I thought, too much about the unknown origin of how much energy would be involved in all this, to me. And honestly, it's a 3-hour talking movie. Everybody's giving everything across, talking, talking, talking. A few pictures here, jumping timelines,
The
like you had mentioned earlier, black and white
so
versus color.
which really pissed me off is this should have been a TV show just like or a series they did for Chernobyl. That's all they had to do. They could have put on HBO Max if they really wanted to. I don't care.
Well, you know what? We covered Chernobyl because surprisingly, we weren't sure what to make of it. And I remember we got into it because
Mhm.
it's full on communism, right? The
Mhm.
situation we're in. That being said, the structure of what the people and they're working on it was communism, but the story and the telling part of it was about how everything worked together for it. And that's what made it compelling. And they made you feel really appreciative and scared of the situation that they were in. So again, they took people, put them in a situation, even if they're friggin' commies and you don't care because it was a bad thing or whatever, you felt compelled to what's going on because at some point it almost some of them seemed like they wanted to work like a team, but they still had that human element and they were scared of the communist factor because of their bosses and the system that they're in. And again, I'm not sure that that's as accurate as it could have been, but that being said, it was very compelling, much more so than this film. Um, it's it's tough because, like I said, I really wanted to like it. I don't hate it, but man, Ed, this is one of those movies. Get lit up, get beyond something or a couple of things while you watch it and all that, and just listen to go blah 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 because that's really all it is. And it's unfortunate because
It's a 3 hour drama. I'm gonna tell you right now. You can do. I said if
yeah,
you're gonna be watching a documentary movie, not really. It's a reenacted documentary movie.
a biopic. What?
Yeah,
Yeah,
biopic. Yeah,
it's a passion project. So I love the fact that he did it because it is a bit unique, and this is one that they pumped up for a while. I do question how much of it's being pumped up like Barbie and Indiana Jones because of how bad box office has been doing. Um, and like I had mentioned last week when we reviewed Mission Impossible 7, it seemed to me some of the news out there, everyone was giddy and happy that the internal productions of 90 million fell short, because they only grossed 80 million on Mission Impossible. And I'm like, suck it, it's going to do good, make its
yeah.
money.
And right now it's getting its ass kicked by a Barbie. Barbie.
I'm not. I'm
Barbie.
not surprised the Barbie's raking in the dough. You can make money, not be a good film. You can be a good film and not. It just
Barbie's probably more energetic, more brave with colors. This is kind of like just kind of watching an old serial movie.
yeah. And with Barbie, people were talking about how smart the script is and all that. I'll reserve judgment for if and when I ever choose to see it. I'd have to be in a certain mood, I guess, for that. Obviously,
Drunk.
it's a popular movie. Well, but see, here's the thing. If you're trying to do something in a movie, own it and do it. Okay. So if they want to make a message type movie with certain themes in it, I would have no problem sitting there saying I think they accomplished it, even if I don't like it or think the message is stupid or whatever. The problem here with Oppenheimer is there wasn't really a message. You say it was kind of anti-war. I can see that. It certainly was not a pro-America film either. I'm not saying it's
No, it's
anti-American.
it's I mean, it's like they really implied that we need to build this bomb in order to win the war, to end the war.
Yeah,
But then like you also realize that wasn't the case. Back in World War II, the bomb was it was like the war was pretty much over, but then the Japanese it looked like they weren't going to surrender, so Truman dropped the bomb. You know,
yeah. Fat Man, Little Boy, I believe, and
yeah, yeah.
once that got dropped, boom, it was all over. I mean, literally, that was the finishing touches in case you needed. And they didn't even really, I think, get into great detail about it and stuff. But the thing with Truman in there, I was like, shit, that felt kind of heavy. It felt kind of real. It's just when
Yeah.
Oppenheimer's talking, you're kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of half asleep. But then when other people get on there and something would change,
So
you're like, oh,
yes, so
the movie's picking up.
it's real. It really pissed me off that there's two different movies in one movie. You had Oppenheimer building the bomb, then the other part was basically Robert Downey Jr. character who was trying to get on the cabinet, the president's cabinet, but but he had to throw Oppenheimer under the bus because Oppenheimer had humiliated him beforehand. So he was trying to do that, and it's just like him before this Senate hearing, and then like I said, like it's just, and then not only that, you had the other time period where he had Oppenheimer was in front of a kangaroo court,
Hmm.
and they're basically trying to take away his security card or
Hmm.
access. He couldn't say by saying he's a communist and all that blah blah blah, and they're lying up anything. It's just like it's just anything they could do that discredit him, make him look like he's a villain, he's a traitor. Uh, it got to the point where it's like, dude, choose a lane. We're not doing three movies in one.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. He tried to just be safe, and I don't believe he said, "Well, I'll just put everything out there as accurately as possible and let you, as a smart watcher, decide." It didn't feel that way at all.
yeah.
I agree with you on that. Yeah, I work with a few people who've have some different various levels of clearances in the private sector and all that. So we talk about situations and bases and installations and how things go and stuff like that. And so the only thing I could think of about what they was going on there at the end is if you're that fucking smart and you're running a project with all these people, one of the greatest logistical accomplishments America's ever produced, thank you capitalism,
Oh yeah.
um, it's and you don't understand that they'll turn on you in a moment because it's the government. Boy, you really are dumb. And people around you that may have worked with you or were loyal to you are dumb. But here's the thing about Oppenheimer. Again, being one of the smart people growing up, he was a little guy, physically ill, like a lot of them are, was bullied. You could say that drove him to do whatever. I don't care. The bottom line is he wasn't really that good of a guy. And I'm not saying he was evil, but he was basically a petulant child. He came from a lot of wealthy money, and that was if they'd kind of made that more of a stark difference between him and Downey's character, because Downey he talks about how basically he went to go study but didn't have money, so he ended up being like a salesman and all this and that, and they could have had some little thing like, oh, it's Oppenheimer versus him or something, but they didn't do it. They just only teased it a little bit or talked about it. They didn't really get into it. And it's like, God damn, this movie's not going anywhere. That's why I say after about 15, 20 minutes, when, he gets honeypotted by the commie chick, I'm like, yeah, okay, I see what's going to happen in this movie. And
So this had a huge cast for celebrities. Cillian Murphy obviously is
yes,
Oppenheimer. Florence Pugh is Jean, the girl that wants to be with him. Robert Downey Jr., Emily Blunt, Jack Quaid, Rami Malek, Matt Damon, Josh Peck from Drake and Josh. You don't know who he is. You had Emma Dumont from the show Gifted. She played Clarice. Josh Hartnett, Matthew Swayfer. He's a Swedish or German actor. Gary Oldman is Harry S. Truman. You had Dane DeHaan from Spider-Man 2. He played the Green Goblin, or Harry Osborn. Then you had Casey Affleck is in this too. Sadie Stratton. uh, Jason Clark. You know him from that horrible Terminator Genesis movie. He played John.
Okay.
Yeah. Olivia Thirlby. You'll know her from Dread.
Okay.
She was a sidekick. So and then you had David Krumholtz. You'll recognize he's the fat guy that's going around and when he goes meets Oppenheimer, he's like, hey, you need to come with me. They're at a lecture, and he's So anyway, he's in there. He played, I guess, David Krumholtz played Bernard in Santa Claus.
Hmm.
Tony Goldwyn's in here too. I mean, there's a huge cast. Matthew Modine,
Yeah, I recognize Matthew Modine. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
James Remar's in here too. Yeah, it's just a lot of people.
I'll say this movie is getting a lot of consideration for actors and supporting and this and that and all that. I will tell you, I think Matt Damon phoned it in here. I thought it was a pretty horrible performance by him. The women were fine. They weren't really given anything to do except here. Let me show a woman for a minute or two, and that's it. The Christopher, I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna try to be nice about it, but I'm gonna say it in English. I have absolutely no problem staring at TNA on the screen or whatever, men, women, whatever. Not that I'm into guys, but they tried showing in here a few scenes of him like thinking about things, and Chris Nolan just can't do sex. He just doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't have an erotic eye. He doesn't have a titillating thing. He doesn't have that 80s thing of boobies sticking out and all that. He just doesn't get it. So they kind of overdid it in one or two scenes in here, in my opinion, where just I'm looking at him like, yeah, I get it. I'm not offended, but it's not working. And I'm like, are you at the
When the
point where
yeah,
like, we can't trim like 30 minutes to an hour out of this friggin' movie? It just, Nolan did not hit a home run at this at all, barely. And
when
with
he's yeah. So there's only like three sex scenes. The last one is where they're having sex and like but it's like it's not like really real. It's like it's all in his wife's mind as it's revealed, by everybody else comes forward that he had an affair, and everybody else finds out. He's like, oh, you had an affair with this communist girl.
oh
Yeah.
my God, somebody had an affair, somebody in a prominent position of importance. Wow. I color me shocked coming out of a congressional hearing. Hey, guess what? We have congressional hearings going on today for all sorts of things. And you know what? Nothing ever happens. Am I right?
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah,
say
but
this.
there was a
Go
lot of
ahead.
lot of titillation in this movie, though.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's. I'm thinking of the scene where she's riding him in the chair in front of everybody, and it's like a dream thought that
Yep,
that his wife is having.
that's what it's talked about. Yeah, that was.
Yeah. All right. So here's the thing with the awards and all that about this film. Um, in a vacuum, I look at this and go, mid, maybe at best. But compared to what we've seen this year, it does look like it's head and shoulders above a lot of films. And I hate to say it, but that's how low I think this year's quality of films have been in general. And of
Sure.
course, I haven't seen everything. You haven't, and we've only talked about certain things here, and we've seen more than we've talked about. But this is one of those movies that, because it's a biopic, because it's supposed to be a big, feeling film, people are going to automatically treat it as being serious, as Oscar worthy and contentious. And I despise the Oscars, always have, don't really care about them. They mean nothing to me. They're just a circle jerk, everybody giving each other a pat on the back and awards. I mean, I'll give Nolan credit for this. For my final thoughts, I really appreciated the fact that he chose something that he really likes. Obviously, time is a concept of his that he is fascinated with, and we could tell that from a lot of his films. He definitely has a stylistic look. It just didn't work for me here at all. And there's worse films out there. I got to sit there, but everybody immediately wants to just tell you how great they are. I just can't help but wonder if part of it's this post-COVID business of just being happy to have something to experience in a theater for a summer film. Because frankly, even though we'd had Mission Impossible, which we loved, I still feel we're starved for it. Because remember, we'd have something coming out about every week or every other week that might be interesting to see, and we don't have that. So by default, in the vacuum, this movie is kind of a little bit better than what it really is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like I said, Nolan Hollywood. This is to make a lot of money because a lot of celebrities on there. Scratch my back here, scratch your back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sound of Freedom, Princess is asking in here, and Ed, you and I have talked about it. I have not seen it. Have you seen it?
Nah, I'm not really even interested in it.
I
Like,
was kind of interested in seeing it because I have two thoughts on it, and I'll say this because we've talked about reviewing it here soon. One, without knowing anybody that's seen it, I feel like it's probably not going to go deep enough. And two, as much as I love Jim Caviezel and all that, the story of this movie is not the movie itself and its subject matter, the human trafficking. We'll just leave it at that. I
Like
don't. I
it's
mean,
real. It's a real story.
I know that it is, but
Yeah.
the story of this movie is the insane amount of reallocation of consumers' resources in America today because of the ESG messaging that's been going out by big corporate companies, a la Bud Light, Disney down here in Central Florida, and of course everything else. Where now a lot of people are paying it forward. Where I'm getting reports and reading of them where, hey, I'm gonna go see it, but I'm gonna pay for a ticket for somebody else to come see it. And there's ways you can go log in to go see it, and people have paid for a ticket and you can claim it. So it's making money, but that doesn't mean if it's made $100 million that might take a million people to see. Let's say maybe only 500,000 people have seen it because other people have paid for it. And there are shenanigans that go on with box office numbers and fronting and accounting stuff. We know this, so I'm not totally cynical about it, but part of me goes, people are just propping it up just to prop it up because it's supposedly um, a decent portrayal of the subject matter and bringing an awareness to what's going on today. And you see that with that song "Try This in a Small Town." I think that's the latest thing going on, and I think that's going to be a phenomenon that we're going to see continue over the next several years, at least, not just in film but in other places too. So we may get to see Sound of Freedom at some point and talk about it. It is pretty dark. I would like to see it because I'm curious. I don't think it's going to be worse than this movie, though, and it's certainly a hell of a lot shorter. I can say that. I mean, if we get to Sound of Freedom 6 or whatever like that, I'm going to be like, no thanks. Just checking out some of the comments here, there too. Yeah, yeah. I will say this. Artie and I are definitely, I think, going to want to be reviewing the Lost Voyage of the Demeter August 11th. Hopefully, that's not a dud. Check out the trailer if you haven't on that. We might go a little lighthearted Tuesday night with a martial arts movie. We're finalizing a few choices here, 80s action, as it were.
Santa Rothrock.
Yeah, I'm thinking, and I like the blonde one too that we were talking about because I'm like, what the hell is this? I don't know if
I
I've heard
can't
this.
find it though. I can't find it. That's pisses me off. It's like
Okay.
it's like
We'll tweet and post what the movie is ahead of time on that. We'll probably decide here shortly. Let me hand it over to you, RDV. Anything you need to plug and give us your final thoughts, please, on this movie.
final thoughts. Like I said on this is Oppenheimer. Watch it once if you want to. It's not a must-see movie. It really is long, 3 hours long. So you're if you don't like it, you wasted 3 hours of your life. Like I said, I recommend you watch it at home. That way, if you need to take a break because you're falling asleep, you can go return to watch it. Versus paying $8 to $12 at a theater and falling asleep there and not getting your money back. It's, yeah. I said that it's not really much to the movie. I said I don't know. Now I kind of want to go watch Dunkirk. I want to watch something with action.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's like
pew, pew, pew. Oh, I forgot to ask you this. I did want to bring this up. A buddy of mine just saw it a few hours ago, and he sent me a message, and he saw it at a smaller dine-in theater here in Central Florida. So it's a little more of a chiller, older, skewing audience, which is cool. But he said, despite that, he said some couples were walking out. So I've got to say that, and I'm curious because I know you have a tendency to see where you're at in the Great Midwest at a particular theater and all that. Was it a full audience? Was it emptied? Were people walking out? I mean, did you get
never a
anything
full
from
audience
that?
for me. Never a full audience for me because I go to the very early showings. I go to the first showings of the day. I don't
Right.
go at nighttime. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not a young kid anymore. And I hate popcorn noises. People eat popcorn. I can't stand it. I'm a violent young man. I will
Well, just don't go poison anybody in the apple, you little sad sack. Mini Oppenheimer wannabe. Or I'm going to start calling you Ken.
I'm not gonna do it and let people know about it. You gotta cover your tracks, bro.
Yeah. So just for the record, because I don't recall off the top of my head, what's the potential title for the Cynthia Rothrock film for Tuesday night?
Oh, I thought it was Matt. Wasn't it?
Well,
Matt
because
something?
sometimes they got the other name.
The Magic Crystal is the only one I could find. It's from 1986.
Cynthia Rothrock.
Yep.
Yeah. So
You can find it on YouTube. It's also on the other sites as well. But
she kicks some ass. She looks really good doing it too. So Tuesday night, that's going to be. It's not a canon classic, but that's okay. And you know what? I'll probably be more entertained in this movie, I think. All right, there you have it, guys. Oppenheimer, our take on the film. They're mid at best. There's better things out there to watch. Check it out. Let us know what you think too. If you have suggestions, let us know as well. We'll be happy to cover them. See you guys Tuesday night. Have a good night. As always, stay extreme. No Meg 2, Ed Brewer. God damn it. Okay, we'll probably do Meg 2. All right, guys.
Meg, the Meg.
Good night. This has not been Dan Kerr's production. That's for you, Pixel, or Quinn Martin.